New year, new you. Enroll in Stanbridge University's LVN, RN, VetTech, OTA, or PTA programs. Campuses located in Orange County, Los Angeles, and Riverside. Ranked a top 10 California Best Small College in 2020. Financial aid available for those who qualify. This new year, take the next step toward a rewarding career. Apply today for the winter 2021 classes and jumpstart your new year. Learn more at stanbridge.edu.
Welcome to Virtual Meditation with Shiloh.
Hello?
Today we're working on forgiving ourselves for not knowing the difference between upload and download speeds before getting cable internet.
That's oddly specific.
Repeat after me. I am not my cable internet.
Wait, I don't have cable.
I'm not a bad... If my video calls, more like video stalls.
Hey Shiloh, there's something...
I will get AT&T fiber.
And I will switch classes until you do.
Slow upload speeds? You're not a bad person. You just need better internet. With 20 times faster upload speeds, AT&T Fiber delivers a faster internet experience than cable. Get AT&T Fiber with no annual contract. Limited availability in select areas. Call 1-877-ONLY-ATT. Check eligibility at att.com/getfiber based on combined internet 1000 wired up and download capacity versus major cable providers 1 gig service with uploads of 35 megabits per second. Speeds vary, not guaranteed. Restrictions apply.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. So over at Mother Jones, a journalist named Leland Nally called every single person in Jeffrey Epstein's black book, and then wrote a very detailed and very long article describing those phone calls. So what we're going to do today is we're going to break this article down into two parts. The first part is right here and right now on the morning update, and then the second part will be later on tonight on the daily drop. So let's just jump right in, considering how long this article is and how much we have to work through. This article, like I said, Mother Jones, headline, I called everyone in Jeffrey Epstein's little black book. What I learned about rich people, conspiracy, genius, Ghislaine, stand-up comedy, and evil from 2,000 phone calls. And the author, again, is Leland Nally. And a tip of the cap to Leland for this article. This is an in-depth article, very, very large article. And he obviously did a lot of work, 2,000 phone calls. It's like a nightmare for me. I can't imagine sitting around making 2,000 phone calls. But I'll tell you, this is an interesting subject and an interesting way to go about the investigation. Why not get right down to it and call some of the people in this book? And that's exactly what this author did. And a tip of the hat to you, Leland. Good job, buddy. Jeffrey Epstein's little black book is one of the most cursed documents ever compiled in this miserable, dying country. Yeah, hey, he's not wrong about that, right? Pax Americana ended the day those planes hit the buildings. And it's just gotten worse progressively since then. And, I mean, honestly, it looks like a country that's in its dying throes right now, America. It's embarrassing. What's going on in the streets is embarrassing. The way people conduct themselves is embarrassing. It's just an absolute shit show all the way around. And then you add on the little black book, and boy, oh boy, that definitely is one of the worst documents ever compiled, right? Totaling 97 pages and containing the names, numbers, and addresses of a considerable cross-section of the global elite, Epstein's personal contact book first turned up in a courtroom in 2009 after his former butler, Alfredo Rodriguez, tried to sell it to lawyers representing Epstein survivors for $50,000. Rodriguez described the book, apparently assembled by Epstein's employees, as the Holy Grail. Yeah, look, but, again, I've always wondered, was it really Epstein's book anyway? How much of it was Ghislaine's? How much did Ghislaine have to do with the book? She was in charge of a lot of the social situations, right? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure Epstein was penning names in that book as well, but I bet you Ghislaine had just as much access to it, and, she was in charge of the Rolodex, and let's remember, folks, she had a leadership role. So I'm guessing that we should be calling this the Maxwell Epstein Black Book. Rodriguez described the book, apparently assembled by Epstein's employees, as the Holy Grail. It is annotated with cryptic marginalia, stars next to certain entries, arrows pointing towards others, and the names of at least 38 people are circled for reasons that aren't totally clear. There are 1,571 names in all, with roughly 5,000 phone numbers and thousands of emails and home addresses. There are celebrities, princes and princesses, high-profile scientists, artists from all over the world, all alongside some of the world's most powerful oligarchs and political leaders. People like Prince Andrew, Ehud Barak, and Donald Trump. And the fact that Epstein not only was palling around with these people at so-called events, like they said, right? Oh, we were just at parties together. Well, you were close enough that your names were in the book, right? So let's not act like, the marathon defense is going to work here, folks. We have some questions, and, some answers are probably a good idea. And what the author of the article did here was really good work, right? He said, you know what, the hell with the nonsense. I'm going to go directly to these people. I'm going to make these phone calls, and we'll see what's what. Rodriguez was Epstein's butler at his Palm Beach mansion for many years. He was intimately familiar with his boss's sexual proclivities. He claimed to have seen nude underage girls at Epstein's pool, said that he would routinely wipe down and stow away sex toys in Epstein's room after massages, and alleged that he saw child pornography on Epstein's personal computer. And he's not the only one who has said that, right? We have heard that from multiple people about the child pornography and the lewd pictures of young children and the artwork and just the whole entire weird-ass vibe that a normal person would see and feel and be like, what in the is going on here? That's why when all of these people try and have these excuses of, I had no idea what was going on. I really had no idea. It wasn't that weird. I never saw any underage girls. All the other shit wasn't weird enough for you, bro, to make you question what in the F was going on in this place? I mean, come on. In 2011, Rodriguez was sentenced to 18 months in prison for having tried to sell the book to an undercover agent after failing to notify investigators about its existence. How about that, huh? Rodriguez got more time in prison, remember, than Jeffrey Epstein for trying to sell this book. It just shows you how skewed everything is when it comes to this Jeffrey Epstein case and the way prosecution has went about going after these people historically, right? We've seen some changes lately after people have just had enough and demanded justice. But previously, it was an absolute shit show. How does Rodriguez get 18 months when Epstein only gets 13? It just shows you the Department of Just Us and the failure of those who are part of the institution. It just shows you how much their failure affects everything. Their inability to effectively manage the Justice Department has such long-ranging consequences. Rodriguez said in court that the book was insurance against Epstein, who wanted him to disappear. Rodriguez died of mesothelioma shortly after serving his sentence. The public first became aware of the book in 2015 when the now-defunct website Gawker published a version of Rodriguez's copy, revealing for the first time just how ludicrously connected Epstein was to the people who run the world. And that's not even hyperbole, right, by the author. That's not even hyperbole. These are the people who run the world. We've been through them a million times here. All of the bankers, all of the power players in politics, all of these people combined are the people that literally run the world. They make the laws. They give out the loans. They decide They decide who is going to qualify for a house or for a car, right? They're the ones that are in charge of all of that. These are the people that are pulling all of the strings. These are the people that are in charge. Gawker's file showed only names. Attached phone numbers and emails were blacked out. Shortly before Epstein's mysterious death in August 2019, in his cell at the Manhattan Correctional Facility, an unredacted version of the book popped up on some dark corners of the internet, with almost every phone number, email, and home address entirely visible. And I got my hands on a copy. So again, this is real investigative work, right? This is the sort of work that investigators and journalists should be doing, especially in a case like this, and we have not seen enough of it. Like I've said from the beginning, I'm not a journalist like this gentleman here, right? I'm certainly not working for one of these outlets or anything like that. But these guys who have these resources behind them, these journalists, They have completely abandoned this story for the most part. You've had very few real investigative journalists with resources digging in. And it's pretty disgusting, honestly, to see some of the garbage that they focus on and write about, as opposed to some of the hard-hitting situations that really affect all of our lives. It's pretty pathetic to see what the 24-hour news cycle brings us on a daily basis. And then you have people like this over here at Mother Jones who are doing great work. And you think he's going to be on any of these shows? You think Rachel Maddow's going to have him on, or Tucker Carlson? Or no, I'm sure they won't, but they should. Epstein's little black book isn't little at all. It's gargantuan. Its defining feature is its size and thoroughness, and there are just as many boring numbers as exciting ones. For every Jordanian princess, there are 3 reflexologists from Boca. The listings are at times preposterously detailed, often containing additional names and numbers for people's emergency contacts, their parents, their siblings, their friends, even their children, all alongside hundreds of car phones, yacht phones, guest houses, and private office lines. Does that sound like somebody that you just ran into? If he has your yacht phone number, your car phone number, your house phone number, really? That sounds like somebody who's just an acquaintance, somebody you ran into at the bar? Come on. Give me a break. This is obviously somebody that all of these people who had 5, 6, 7 numbers in this book, they all knew Jeffrey Epstein. And if they try and say any different, they're lying. Some individuals have dozens of numbers and addresses listed, while others just list just a single number and a first name. Epstein collected people, and if you ever had any interaction with him or Ghislaine Maxwell, his one-time girlfriend and co-conspirator, you more than likely ended up in this book, and then several years later, well, you received a call from me. I made close to 2,000 phone calls total. I spoke to billionaires, CEOs, bankers, models, celebrities, scientists, a Kennedy, and some of Epstein's closest friends and confidants. That's pretty crazy, just cold calling all of these people. And having some of them talk to you is even more batshit crazy. I think it's just a very creative way to go about it, and Leland should definitely get some kudos here. It's a very creative way to go about your investigation, sir. I sat on my couch and phoned up royalty, spoke to ambassadors, irritated a senior advisor at Blackstone, quality work, F Blackstone, and the rest of the party running around there, and left squeaky voicemails for what must constitute a considerable percentage of the world oligarchy. At times, the book felt like a dark palantir, giving me glimpses of dreadful, haunted dimensions that my soft, gentle animal being was never supposed to encounter. Yeah, look, man, when you start delving into the world of Jeffrey Epstein and you start swimming around in the muck where he resided, it is not a comfortable place to be. It's a very dark and disgusting place filled with some really devious, dangerous, sick Sick individuals. So I get it. I know what you're talking about. Seeing at close range the mundanity of Epstein and his fellow elites, how simple and childish they could be, was a sickening experience of its own. The worst call by far was with a woman who told me she'd been groped by Epstein, an incident she said she didn't report at the time out of fear of retribution from Epstein. I mean, how many times have we, heard that story? Right? How many times have we heard that there would be retribution if you talked or if you snitched on Epstein or you told the authorities about what was going on? And when he was around so many powerful people and he counted so many powerful people as his friends and his allies, well, it's one of those things where you believe him when he lays that threat, right? I have been aggressively counseled to remind the readers of Mother Jones that an appearance in the address book is not evidence of any crime or of complicity in any crime or of knowledge of any crime. Yeah, well, that's for sure, right? No doubt about it. But still, the question remains, why are you in the book? Most of these people won't even answer that simple question, and that's why it has become an issue. If you're going to avoid it, well, this is something that's in the public sphere now. People know about it. You can't just make pretend that you're not in this book. You can't make pretend that you didn't have a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein in some capacity. You have to explain. You're public figures. That's part of the deal. They weren't all elites, thankfully. Sometimes I would have delightful conversations with normal people who had cleaned a car or given Epstein a facial and only shared my distaste for Epstein and his circle. Yeah, look, again, there are definitely going to be a lot of people like that. When you're a rich billionaire or 100 millionaire or whatever you want to call them, you're around a lot of people as far as employees, people that are going to work for you, and people that might not have an intimate relationship with you, meaning people that aren't at the mansions, people that aren't involved in procuring girls for you. There's going to be plumbers, etc., right? Sometimes I would call a number that had changed hands at some point since the book was compiled, and instead of reaching the governor or fashion designer I was looking for, I would end up with just a normal bloke on the line, some poor recipient of a torrent of wrong number phone calls of the worst variety imaginable. Their fate was a twisted inversion of my own. The oligarchy wouldn't stop calling them. That's crazy. I can't even imagine. Imagine having one of these phone numbers of one of these people who are in this book and, they have a new number or whatever, and you get the phone number in the rotation. How horrible would that be? Some highlights and lowlights from my tour of Jeffrey Epstein's Little Black Book. Remember, an appearance in the address book is not evidence of any crime or of complicity in any crime or of knowledge of any crime. Yeah, but there's still a lot of questions that need to be asked. Doug Band, longtime advisor to Bill Clinton, called a number listed as his home number, which wound up being his childhood home. Spoke to his dad for 5 minutes. Seemed like a decent guy. Doug hasn't lived here for 30 years. All right, take care, man. So he called Doug Band, and it was the guy's home number, which was where the dude grew up. You imagine? Jeffrey Epstein has your parents' home number in his black book? What in the ever-living F? Why would he have that phone number? So many questions. Jimmy Kane, a former CEO of Bear Stearns. Wife answered the phone. When asked about Epstein and Kane's relationship, she said yes, they were friends, but we have no comment. Edward Razik, former chief marketing officer for L Brands. I can't talk about any of that. Our business has requested no interviews. And remember, Razik was also on the line by fostering a bad work environment for the girls at Victoria's Secret. Those were the allegations, sexual harassment, etc., etc. Rupert Murdoch, executive chairman of News Corp. His assistant gave me Hope Hicks' cell phone number after I asked for it. Hicks has not returned any of my calls. Well, that's a shock, huh? I'm really shocked that Hope Hicks hasn't returned any calls from you. I mean, Jeez, these people, all of these people are just unbelievable, folks. I honestly don't even know what to say about half of them. Princess Furial, Jordanian philanthropist, called her home number. Doorman answered. I asked for a Missed Friol, completely butchering the pronunciation. Doorman was confused, so I said princess, and he immediately told me where she was and who she was with. Peter Roth, chairman and CEO of Warner Brothers. No, that's not a shock, huh? I wonder how often Mr. Roth was hanging out with old Harvey Weinstein. Listed cell number went to his son's phone. Yeah, I don't really want to talk about any of this, his son said. I don't want to be anywhere near this whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. And that's what it's all about, right? They don't want to be near it. Even if they had a relationship with Epstein, they don't want to be near it, folks. They'd rather back away. They'd rather just, like I always say, the marathon approach. And now, as it's becoming more serious, it's turning into a sprint. But these people who don't want to talk about it, come on now. Now, I understand here, this went to his kid's son, right? I mean, to his son's phone. So I don't expect his son to answer for his father. But some of these other people that, don't want to talk about it and they want to just avoid it, that's not going to occur. The cat is now out of the bag. Jamie Grant, global chairman of investment banking JP Morgan. I wonder, how many times has Mr. Grant been involved with some of the stuff we talk about in the FinCEN files? I'm guessing a lot. As you all know, I think most of these bankers at this level, the Jamie Grant level bankers, are up to no good. So it would not shock me one bit if Mr. Grant wasn't involved in all of that sort of nonsense as well. Listed cell number also went to his son, who told me his dad didn't know Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. It's sort of like the New York City business world. I would say Jeffrey Epstein is like a couple people removed from my dad. Oh, so now we're doing the 7 degrees of separation of Kevin Bacon, huh? Yeah, look, my dad's friend's uncle's cousin knows Jeffrey Epstein. That's why my dad was in the book. What? Robert Meester, former chairman of Aon Insurance and the man who introduced Epstein to Leslie Wexner. He's a sicko. Bye-bye. So that's what Robert Meester said, huh? Oh, okay, that was very informative. Thanks a lot, sir. Kerry Kennedy, president of RFK Human Rights. Listed as an emergency contact for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Mary Kennedy, and seemed very taken aback that I had forgotten Bobby was dead. I asked where he was. Yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes. I then asked her about Mary Kennedy, who I learned is also dead. Big yikes all around on this one. She told me she used to sell photographs to Mother Jones in her younger days. Well, okay, that was informative. And I'm sure that he had a bunch of phone calls like that, right? Calling people and they're like, what is this even about? And then it probably veered off into other directions when he realized that it was either a number of somebody who was no longer related to Jeffrey Epstein, meaning nobody that has a relationship with him or whatever have you. It would veer off into a different direction. Merrill Tisch, former chancellor of the New York State Board of Regents and heir to the Lowe's Corporation. Me. Hey, I'm doing a story on Jeffrey Epstein. I was wondering if you ever met the guy or interacted with him. Tisch. I don't know who you are. How did you get my number? Me. Well, I got it from Epstein's contact book. Tisch. From who? Me. Jeffrey Epstein's contact book. Tisch. No, this is ridiculous. Who are you? What's your name? Me. My name's Leland. I'm doing a story for a magazine. Tisch. Oh my God. You have to be kidding me. No, I can't help you out. Thank God. I mean, really? Me? Me? Merrill and Jimmy were listed with an address and this number. You're Tisch, right? With a C? There's a David Tisch listed as well. Don't know if you're related? Tisch. Huh. Goodbye. Oh, man. That's a good one there. That lady seemed to be mortified that she was involved with Jeffrey Epstein or that her name was found in that black book. I can only imagine. I wonder what her voice sounded like on the conversation, not just reading the words, but I wonder what she sounded like. Joel Pashkow, board member of the Palm Beach Police and Fire Foundation. You're really pathetic, you know that? Yeah, man, people keep calling me up, asking for Muffy, and I'm like, I'm just always polite, man. That's Elijah Hutch, 22-year-old aspiring music producer who lives in Flatbush in Brooklyn. He has the old cell number for Muffy Potter, wife of world-famous plastic surgeon Cheryl Astin, and the fourth greatest socialite in history, according to Town and Country magazine. The fact that we have a list of the quote-unquote greatest socialites in history? What sort of moronic nonsense is that? They get a list? Socialites get a list of who the greatest socialites in history are? I have an idea. How about you're all idiots, okay? The whole lot of you are idiots. They'll text me about some dinner I went to, or how it was great seeing me with so-and-so, and I'm always just respectful, man, and just let them know, hey, man, I think Muffy gave you the wrong number. Eli had no idea who Muffy was, or Epstein for that matter, and I almost didn't want to explain it to him, but I did. The child sex ring, the princes, the presidents, the suicide, the black book, everything. Out of all the people I spoke to, Eli had by far the most cogent analysis of the situation. Damn, man, this is all sounding so strange. Find Eli Hutch on SoundCloud here. Let the haunting lyrics of Go Away give you strength as they did me, awake at my desk at 4 a.m. so I could call every pedophile in London. You're gonna need more coffee, bro. Look, in fact, I should send you a 6-pack of Bangs because you're going to need those, I think. You're going to need the energy drinks. Step it up. You're going to need more. To call every pedophile in London is going to take you quite some time, my friend. What a world. Any phone can reach any other. It's almost unbelievable what a string of 7 to 12 numbers can get you. All I did for weeks was sit on my couch, feel like dog shit, flip through this haunted book, and call people up one by one in between bouts of stress diarrhea. That's it. You just type the numbers in, and sometimes you get a ring, and sometimes a person picks up. Remember, you know what I always say about being stuck in the house for 6 months, being locked down and shit? You really think that this guy would have went through this if he wasn't locked in his house? Probably not. So again, the quarantine has created some good content, and it's really made people become pretty damn creative. The fuzz, maybe. I made the first call from a coffee shop in Los Angeles, Koreatown, the day after Epstein's suspicious suicide in his cell at Manhattan's Metropolitan Correctional Center while awaiting trial, a convenient turn of events for the rich and famous people who would now avoid exposure in court. Well, all right, guess he started before the quarantine, so this guy actually has a lot of pizzazz, right? That's a lot of focus. 2,000 phone calls, calling all of these people and asking them, probably going through the same questions with all of them. Talk about repetitive. And you know what? It turned into a fantastic story, and a lot of work, right? The day after Epstein committed suicide, he made the first phone call, so he's been working on this for a lot longer than the quarantine, so props. The death was a national scandal. Followers of the Epstein case, I'm including myself here, reacted to his death with a burst of paranoia and anger. Conspiracizing was rampant. I had come across a screenshot of an unredacted section of the Black Book and determined to track down its source. I decided to check the most awful place on the internet, 8chan, where I was quickly rewarded for my intuition. An unredacted PDF of the entire book had been posted just a few hours earlier. About 12 seconds later, I was dialing Melania Trump's personal cell phone voicemail. Then I sent a text to David Copperfield. David, we need to talk. It's about Jeffrey. I love it. I love it. I love it. Imagine sending that sort of text message to David Copperfield. Copperfield's reaction, he must have been like, who is this? What do you mean we need to talk about Jeffrey? Who in the hell is this? God, to be a roach in the rushes when these idiots got these phone calls or these text messages, they must have been caught so off guard. I tried a couple more people, none of whom picked up, whereupon I was interrupted by a call from a restricted number. The guy on the line said he was with the FBI. He said there were reports of fraudulent phone calls being made on this line, which I immediately understood as bullshit. I wasn't committing any phone crime or trying to trick someone into doing so. I don't know about fraudulent, but I have a feeling I know what you're talking about, I said, undoubtedly sounding cool, relaxed, and unbothered. He then said, I have a real call coming in, to what sounded like someone else in the room, his voice quiet in the way of someone who has just pulled the phone off of his face to look at it. He hung up and never called again, as far as I know. Whether the guy was FBI or private security goon posing as a Fed, the call was an important development. It told me that the book I was dealing with and the numbers it contained were genuine. Every cell phone number, every yacht line, every private office number, they were all real, and every one of them was about to get a call from me. The art collecting scientist, you're so full of shit. The next day I began calling en masse. By now, in an effort to spare my girlfriend any psychic harm, I was operating from the Los Angeles Central Library, first from a foyer, my voice bouncing off the high marble ceilings with embarrassing levels of clarity and volume, and then from a corner of the library's art gallery, deftly maneuvering around any guests when necessary. That day had been terrible, full of wrong and disconnected numbers, and I was close to quitting the entire project out of both fear and hopelessness when I placed what was maybe my 50th phone call to Stuart Pivar, who answered the phone and told me Jeffrey Epstein was my best pal for decades. So to go back to what he was talking about here with the FBI supposedly calling him, I don't doubt it, right? We heard what happened with Tara Palmieri in the Broken podcast about how the FBI it slips my mind right now, one of the butlers or whoever the gentleman was that they talked to on Broken, Juan Alessi. So how the FBI had talked to him previously, and now how the FBI or security goons called this guy and tried to tell him that he was making fraudulent phone calls. And that's just the way they conduct themselves, right? They love to try and intimidate. They love to try and put fear into people. But you know what? Sometimes you just have to put that to the side when you're working on a story as a journalist, and you just have to keep charging hard. I mean, it's just, when you cover stories like this, there's bound to be some sketchy moments. Pivar, 90 years old, is an art collector, scientist, and a founder, alongside Andy Warhol of the New York Academy of Art. How beautiful is that, huh? We all know about the New York Academy of Art and Eileen Guggenheim and all of the nonsensical BS that occurred there, don't we? He ended up speaking with me for over an hour about his very, very sick friend in a conversation we wound up publishing in its entirety. Stewart told me over and over again that Epstein suffered from satracisis, which he described as the male version of nymphomania, and that he used his money and power to make an industry out of having sex with underage girls. Sounds to me like Stuart Pivar is making this stuff up or going on, what he thinks maybe, because I don't think that Epstein was, making an industry out of it. I think there was no, you know what? Maybe that is the right way to say it. Making an industry out of it. All right. I think we could go with that. This apparently entailed Epstein having sex with 3 girls a day and hundreds in total. He said he never knew Epstein was having sex with children until Maria Farmer, a student at the academy and an acquaintance of Pivar, had told him she had been assaulted and held hostage by Epstein. He also claimed that Epstein had never invited him to what he called the Isle of Babes, a reference to Epstein's private island where much of the child sex trafficking allegedly occurred. Yeah, it was a elite company, right? Only certain people that Jeffrey Epstein was bringing to that island. Only some very select folks were invited to that island. People that Epstein knew had the same proclivities as him would be my guess. Pivar said he was in mourning for Epstein, who had died just 2 days before we spoke. by turns morose, defeated, and indignant, veering between florid ruminations about teenage sexuality and bitter denunciations of me and my life choices, he unloaded his thoughts and feelings about Maxwell and Leslie Wexner, Epstein's billionaire patron, as well as about nature of perversion, criminality, perhaps even life itself. On pathology, what's a pervert? There are all kinds of behavioristic aberrations, obviously including mass murderers. You don't call mass murderers perverts, do you? What? No, we call them mass murderers because they're killing people. Okay, perverts are people that do the things that your best friend Jeffrey Epstein did. Really? I was in mourning for Jeffrey Epstein? Sort of sick bastards in mourning for Jeffrey Epstein. On nature and civilization, and so all kinds of rules get made, and nature is not allowed to take its course on account of civilization. Jeffrey broke those rules big time, but what he was pursuing was kind of, I suppose, sexual urges which would, why am I telling you this stuff? Leave me alone, go away. So this 90-year-old man goes on this rant, right? Starts prattling all this shit off to the author here. And then at the end decides, why am I telling you all of this? Leave me alone. Go away. I wonder if he ended it by, get off of my lawn. On Epstein accuser Virginia Roberts and Epstein's child sex ring, anyone who did one thing, let us say to some 16-year-old trollop who would come to his house time after time after time and then afterwards bitch about it, why no one would pay attention, except Jeffrey made an industry out of it. So this Stuart Pavar guy is obviously another sick bastard, right? Another one of these, art world dealer sick dudes. We've talked about him previously when we were talking about the Academy, and just when you read the things that they would say about Jeffrey Epstein, or how they supported Jeffrey Epstein, or how they called one of these girls a trollop, or you called Virginia a trollop. It's just, the nature of these sick bastards, the nature of these fellow travelers. On Nature and Civilization continued, the business of sexual attraction, the attraction of males and females in its natural state, is not the same as what happens when civilization puts up all kinds of rules, because sexual attraction starts at a very, very young age. When I was 14, I had to deal with a girl who was only 13, and somehow I remember it was at summer camp, and I stopped having to do with her because of the tremendous age gap. On me and my life choices, you're so full of shit it's terrible. You should not be writing about this. You're not qualified. What is this guy's obviously suffering from some form of dementia or something, Mr. Pavar. And sexual attraction starts at a very, very young age. So what does a 13-year-old being attracted to a 14-year-old have to do with Jeffrey Epstein raping little girls? On himself and his life choices, why did I talk to you? I'm a dead fish, and you're going to ruin me. Luckily, I don't know anybody who reads the Mother Jones anymore. I can't believe it still existed. This guy's throwing all kinds of smoke at the author, huh? Firing. You gotta have some set of balls to call Jeffrey Epstein your best friend and then try to bring the smoke to this author. On my having asked him to speak into yapping pointlessly, you asked me to, so to speak, into yapping pointlessly because I have nothing else to do for the moment and I'm relying on you to understand what I say. If you misquote me or anything like that, I will sue your magazine until the end of the earth. Tell me your name again so I can start writing a complaint to sue you. Oh, yeah, he'll probably call Alan Dershowitz. Right away, he's calling Mr. Underpants himself. Alan, I gotta sue Mother Jones. Can you help me out? That's the sort of people we're dealing with here. This guy is calling Jeffrey Epstein his best friend, is saying he's going to sue a journalist for calling him and asking about some context of their relationship. You don't have that ability anymore, okay? That's done. Somewhere in all this, Pavar managed to tell me the entire backstory of his decades' friendship with Epstein. Pavar had met Epstein through the New York Academy of Art, where Epstein was a board member. It was at an NYAA function where he met a young Maria Farmer, who along with her younger sister would become one of Epstein's earliest accusers. Farmer, a painter, was at the Wexner mansion at Epstein's invitation for what she believed was an art residency when she alleges Epstein and Maxwell sexually assaulted her and held her hostage for 12 hours with the aid of Wexner's massive security team. After the ordeal, Farmer soon learned that her younger sister had also been assaulted by Epstein and Maxwell during a similar artist residency. Pavar told me he ran into Farmer at a flea market where she told him this bizarre story, and I realized, oh my God, something was happening after years and years which he, Epstein, didn't tell me. So Maria not only told the FBI, she told Pavar here, and he just went on record saying that. So for all the detractors who like to run their fat, stupid, idiot mouths, well, there you go. Another witness, huh? Another person to corroborate it. My hour-long conversation with Pavar was genuinely illuminating. Pavar spoke about Epstein in the exact way many of his friends and colleagues would speak about him to me in the coming weeks. Reverence mixed with an acknowledgement of Epstein's essential disingenuousness. Much has been made in the press of Epstein's intelligence, mostly due to his vast wealth, the glowing adoration of his elite peers, and the long roster of high-profile scientists and thinkers with whom he surrounded himself. Pavar was the first person to peel back the curtain of Epstein's reputation with intimate, first-hand knowledge of the man himself and to counter the prevailing media narrative at the time. Pavar had attended a few of the now widely publicized intellectual summits at Epstein's house in New York. And we talked about all of those and the power brokers that they brought in. The Edge Conference and John Brockman and all of the power players that were brought into Epstein's orbit for these sorts of conferences. Epstein hosted dinner parties for world-famous scientists and thinkers from around the globe. People like Steven Pinker, Stephen Jay Gould, Martin Nowak, Lawrence Krauss, and Marvin Minsky. Jeffrey didn't know anything about science, Pavar said. He would say, "Oh, what is gravity?" Which, of course, is an unanswerable thing to present at a dinner to a bunch of scientists. And because he was Jeffrey, why, they would, and as the founder of the feast, they would listen to him and try to give answers. He was attempting somehow, in his ignorant and scientifically naive state, to do something scientifically important. He had no compunctions about inviting people, and since he had money, they would listen. Yeah, I think it was more than just the money though, too, right? He was also offering them other things, like the girls that he was sex trafficking. And we've talked at length about these nerdy-ass scientists. You know that they weren't running around with the hot girls when they were growing up or even when they were in college. Just take a look at people like Jeff Bezos even and Elon Musk before they got all their money and all the work done on themselves. You really think they were running around with, hot girls? Hell no, and these scientists certainly aren't. So when Jeffrey Epstein would have that island available and he'd have all these trafficked girls, that would just be the icing on top of the cake, right? Epstein used his money and influence to brand himself as an avant-garde intellect, a sparkling autocrat dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge on the far-out edge of human perception. In large part, it worked extraordinarily well. You could build mountains out of the bizarre, nebulous claims of esoteric knowledge ascribed to Epstein. He was good at puzzles and finding things out. He could look at an organization and see what was wrong, one friend told me. Wexner, when asked by Vanity Fair about his relationship with Epstein, said that he was good at seeing patterns in politics and financial markets. Epstein's mind goes through a cross-section of descriptions, Joe Pagano, a longtime friend of Epstein, had said. He can go from mathematics to psychology to biology. He takes the smallest amount of information and gets the correct answer in the shortest period of time. That's my definition of IQ. Epstein's attempts to portray himself as a galaxy-brain genius was surely helped along by his vast fortune. As I would find, the myth of his genius and the fortune were mutually reinforcing notions. His brilliance went largely unquestioned, because how else could he be so rich? His wealth wasn't so mysterious once you understood just how brilliant he was. Yeah, sorry, I never thought Jeffrey Epstein was brilliant from anything we've read, and from the stuff I've heard from people who knew him, it was all a facade, right? It was all fakery. He had some ability in the stock market maybe to move some numbers and shit, and he had a good feel for money laundering, but as far as legally, he was nothing to write home about. He was no Wall Street powerhouse. He was no big shot. He wasn't anything like that. But Pavar didn't buy it, at least not entirely. He still called his old friend a very, very brilliant guy, and said Epstein had a very low, how should I say, charming way of expressing himself. But Pavar also acknowledged that Epstein was a bullshitter. He couldn't concentrate on a subject for more than 2 minutes before having to change the subject because he didn't know what anyone was talking about and would blurt out the dumbest things, Pavar said. In particular, Epstein had an affinity for posing pseudo-deep questions like, what is up and what is down, at the scientific summits he hosted on his private island. It doesn't shock me one bit, honestly. A pseudo-intellectual like Jeffrey Epstein is definitely going to ask questions like that, right? Trying to act like he knows what he's talking about or floss like he's some sort of, intelligent guy. And these scientists were all probably rolling their eyes in the back, in their heads, in their minds, I mean. Meanwhile, acting like they care what this guy had to say because A, the money, and B, all of the others that came with it. The act would wear thin eventually, Pavar recalled. While everybody was watching, we began to realize he didn't know what he was talking about. Then, after a couple of minutes, Jeffrey had no attention span whatsoever. He would interrupt the conversation and change it and say things like, what does that got to do with pussy? Yeah, that sounds about right. That most definitely sounds about right, folks. And we know that Stuart Pavar was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein's, and they probably were pretty close. It wouldn't shock me one bit, considering how close Epstein was to the Academy, sitting on the board, all the money he donated, etc., etc. So that is a tale that definitely rings true with me. The conversation Pavar had with the author here and what they talked about, because he most definitely had some intimate knowledge of Epstein, and him and Epstein most definitely were pretty good friends. Now, I'm not too sure that Pavar was involved in the actual, trafficking part of anything, but he certainly was rubbing elbows with Jeffrey Epstein more than just an acquaintance. And I don't care what he says. He most definitely saw some weird shit. And even if he didn't see anything weird, Maria told him what was going on, and he still stayed friends with Jeffrey Epstein. So Stuart Pavar is another one that, it's good that he's talking, right? He's talking about, his relationship with Epstein, et cetera, but he's not going to be able to pull the wool over anyone's eyes and act like, he didn't see anything weird at Epstein's house. If you're over there and you're at his conferences and stuff, you saw a few weird things. Now, do you want to acknowledge that or not? Well, that's a different question, and that's probably where we are with Mr. Pavar, right? He is just in his mind, it's normalized. That's the normal behavior for these people. So when Jeffrey Epstein has all this weird ass art and painting and shit on his walls, maybe this guy says to himself, yeah, typical, just the way we roll in polite society. So that's going to end part 1 of this very lengthy article. And part 2 will be tonight on the Daily Drop. So look for that later on, probably around 4 p.m. or so Pacific Standard Time. All right, everybody. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. All right, folks, I'll be back later on and we will finish this article.
My internet came with so many hidden monthly fees, I developed allergies. So now if I'm streaming, I'm sniffling. Or scrolling, I'm sneezing.
Don't get fees. Get Frontier and get no hidden monthly fees on our super fast 500 meg internet for just $59.99 a month plus taxes and government charges.
At first I thought it was pollen. Turns out, I'm just allergic to wasting money.
Frontier. Don't go it alone. Go to Frontier.com for complete offer details. Service is subject to availability and all applicable terms and conditions.